Welcome to this Knowledge Exchange UK KE Matters session. I'm delighted to have Ronnie from Wellspring with us, who's going to talk a little bit about evolving strategies in tech transfer offices, patent renewals, operational shifts that's happening. And obviously, this is a really important aspect of the sector at the moment, that as technology develops, how do we use it most effectively? But also, more importantly, as the focus on spin-outs and licensing has grown quite dramatically with the spin-out review, and with the initiatives flowing from that, like the shared TTOs and the spin-out register, it's really front and center how we build and grow IP and manage it and spin-outs and licensing off the back of it. And so doing that efficiently, effectively is really important. And so I'm sure Ronnie will give us some insights into that sort of sector and how Wellspring can help with those kind of things. But without further ado, over to Ronnie, who I think is going to share some slides.
Yeah, thank you, Stuart. Let me share my screen and hopefully this will work.
And as I say, if you do have questions as Ronnie goes through, do put them in the Q&A. That's perfect. We can see your slides are on the right setting, so I'll leave you to it, Ronnie.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Yeah, really excited to be kind of talking about a topic that I've been involved with for well over a decade now. We as an organization have worked with tech transfer officers for many, many years. And, with respect to patent annuities, I guess partly to Stuart's point, managing patent renewals is kind of a big part of a TTO's operation, as it's busy trying to commercialize IP. And I guess what I'm going to talk about today is how, I've seen and we've seen how patent annuities management has kind of changed over the years. Going to provide a bit of context around what renewals are to begin with, and then operationally how they've been managed and how that is changing over time, from an operations and technology perspective. In terms of agenda, let's click the next slide. As I mentioned, we talk about operational shifts for TTOs, and then what I'm going to do is get quite specific about data integrity and how important it is to ensure that your IP data and related to your IP data, the importance of it being clean and accurate, so that when renewal deadlines are being calculated and presented to you, they are live, accurate, and you can actually operate proactively to manage the renewal payments and deadlines and kind of seek decisions and all that good stuff. And then lastly, I'm going to talk a bit about how Astra Evolve, which is kind of the integrated patent annuity solution that integrates with Evolve, which is our tech transfer software, how that integration works for a busy office that is looking for kind of a more seamless experience of managing patent annuities in a busy office. So to begin with, a bit of background. I assume many of the audience are well aware of annuities, but I'm just going to quickly recap in the context of a TTO operation. Any TTO office around the world is busy speaking to researchers, identifying inventions and invention disclosures, and then evaluating whether those ideas are commercializable, have strong potential to be commercialized. And with the kind of cycle on the left-hand side, you'll see that there are obviously stage gates and evaluations that lead to a decision to file IP. So what is quite common is that patents are filed as PCTs to kind of go internationally. And as many of you are aware, the clock starts ticking. So once you've filed a priority and then you go to PCT and you enter national phase, the cost of the patent family and the PCT begins to get more and more expensive. Specifically for renewals, you'll see that different countries have different renewal timings. So there are country rules and regional differences in when renewal payments are due. But I guess what I'm illustrating with this background slide here is that as a family matures, renewals are due, and different deadlines need to be tracked, and then decisions made on whether patents are going to be maintained in those jurisdictions. If you then extrapolate that over multiple patent families, you've then got a number of renewal deadlines across a calendar year that need to be tracked, and that is quite complicated, And for many years, TTOs have used various means to track deadlines, make decisions on renewal deadlines, whilst ultimately trying to commercialize, license spin out IP as it matures, and then ultimately um, you know let that IP kind of go forward and underpin great technologies and opportunities into the marketplace. In terms of the patent life cycle and managing annuities, these are just some kind of operational points and workflows that we're well aware of. How does an office add new IP? So when you've got a new filing, how is that loaded up and tracked in terms of renewal deadlines? Um, how are you kind of flagging renewals that are coming due for decisions? How do you seek decisions from decision makers? Who decides? Is there a weekly meeting, a monthly meeting, with a IP committee in your office, or actually do you need to seek decisions from your licensees? Um, and then kind of as IP, renewals are decided on, upcoming renewals are instructed, they're invoiced, and then naturally you've got the invoices that you need to then reconcile and ensure that you are able to either pass through those costs or track them versus budget to make sure that you're on track for the year in terms of expenditure. So reconciling patent renewal expenses is also part of the workflow. So, what are the models for managing IP renewals, and how have they perhaps shifted over time from an operational perspective? So, in my mind, I guess there's two main models that I see. So, the first model, which has been around the longest, is the use of multiple attorneys. So, this typically comes about almost kind of organically. So a TTO will select, attorney number one because they're strong in a particular technology field to file certain patent families. And as that patent, matures and renewals are due, that same firm maintains the renewal payments for that particular patent family. And then a second attorney firm is selected for another faculty or technology area to file patents and manage the renewals. And then what then tends to happen is that you have multiple attorneys managing the IP portfolio of the university. And there's the operational aspect to this is how do you kind of track and manage the renewal deadlines and decisions and instructions and invoices that flow in terms of the workflow related to that. I guess what I've seen with this model is, it's great that the whole life cycle of the IP is maintained by the attorneys, but equally, having the renewals spread across multiple attorneys creates a bit of work in terms of correspondence, in terms of reminders and instructions with attorney number one, two, three. So it's the time element around kind of tracking that and the kind of email flow and aspects related to that. And then it's kind of the reconciliation. But I guess what we've seen is that this model is, dare I say, probably declining overall by the TTO community from an operational perspective because the time savings and the cost savings are typically quite high when using the other model. So the other model is again one that's quite common to I assume the audience, which is the centralized provider model. So here the attorneys are still doing the really important stuff in terms of assisting with filing the strongest possible IP and prosecuting that and getting the strongest position possible. But renewals are then delineated and passed over as a responsibility to a centralized provider. Operationally, this model is simpler in terms of the fact that you only have one point of contact. You have one centralized provider for all your renewals, so you can see all of your IP renewal deadlines in one place, your costs in one place. Typically, it's digital, so you're logging into one portal to see the list of renewal deadlines for your portfolio, and you're able to instruct using a software interface. And in the background, the centralized provider is then taking those instructions and paying those renewals around the world to various patent officers. Again, I guess these are my thoughts, based on my experience over many years, I do believe the majority of tech transfer offices these days are using centralized providers in the UK. There is certainly a trend towards kind of centralizing IP renewals with a single provider to kind of simplify the renewals management process um, and kind of reduce some of that admin burden that we talked about. But some of the things I'm seeing in terms of kind of emerging technologies related to renewal solutions providers is that there is more automation, available, going on, being announced in terms of streamlining routine processes and ensuring that the renewal payments processes are as de-risked as possible. There's also certainly a trend towards system integrations. More and more so, it's becoming simpler and easier to integrate base software and systems with other softwares to allow data to flow between systems. And this is certainly the trend that we're seeing with the IP renewal space in terms of IP records synchronizing with a patent renewals centralized software system and being able to see renewal deadlines and prices and to instruct. And overall, software platforms are becoming far more intuitive. Data is becoming far more real time, and this, overall is good news for IP managers and TTOs that are kind of managing renewals in this space. So it's a pretty sort of bright outlook overall for the space. But related to all this, as I mentioned at the start, it's so important that IP data integrity and kind of ensuring data quality of IP records is kept as accurate as possible. Obviously, in the context of renewals, it's paramount. So one thing we did earlier this year was we actually surveyed over 30 TTOs to ask them, a very simple question: why does IP data quality matter for annuities management? And this I've forgotten the word, is it Wordle? Shows the most common words that the recipients kind of return. So you've got, screaming out from this map on the left-hand side that data accuracy and deadlines are kind of big reasons for why IP data quality is so important, because with good quality data, you can track accurate renewal deadlines and make timely payments. So, most important thing, you need to ensure that, entry and data errors are correct. So there's no data errors, and data entry is timely and made, routinely as a key kind of function. Making sure that old IP data is kind of being, kept up to date, cleaned up, and obviously making sure that the status of that IP is also kept up to date, because obviously IP is live through to the point at which it expires, and so it's important to ensure that that is maintained and kept accurate. Also, having good data quality is so important because, again, it's about knowing the renewal deadlines so that you can then create workflows to check in with your licensees if you need decisions from them on whether to renew, delay, or abandon a particular renewal in a particular country. So I guess the takeaway from this survey was that deadline management is, probably the most important reason for good IP data quality. So for deadline management, if you've got good IP data, the base IP data is how renewals professionals calculate renewal deadlines. So, having key identifiers, ensuring they are accurate, ensures that the renewal deadline that then is displayed to you based on the PTO is calculated correctly. You're able to then see renewal deadlines when they're coming due. You also know when renewals are going into the grace period, and if need be, you also are fully aware of when the grace end date is. With good data quality, again, it allows for decision making and proactive decision making, which I'll get onto in a minute. And more important than any of that is no record is missing. So you can have good quality data, but if you haven't added a record, even if the record is inaccurate, that's a worry because it can fall through the cracks. And that really is an area that we continuously kind of worry about, because that is the ultimate worry for both providers and for clients. So we look, to always mitigate the loss of IP risk due to unintended non-payment, which, in short is the record wasn't in your system or synced over or displayed in the renewal provider's system. And, for that reason, the renewal deadline passed, went into the grace period and ended up lapsing. In terms of kind of common IP data quality issues, so this section is just me sharing what we've seen with TTOs that we work with over many years as to kind of the most common IP data quality issues and common mistakes to kind of be aware of or to maybe focus on. So on the left-hand side, application details. Some of these may well be obvious, but we as Astria, as the Astria team at Wellspring, we need the base data to identify these patents at the PTO. So, an accurate application number is needed so that we can cross-check and verify that we see it published at the Patent Office. The PCT filing date is typically, well, is what we need to calculate renewal deadlines. We sometimes find clients are putting in the national phase entry date as the application date, but for renewal calculations, the PCT filing date is the date that we need. We also ask our clients to present a short title of the patent, because again, that's another kind of identifier for us when we're looking for it at the Patent Office to ensure that we've kind of identified it, and then the other sort of data points we can then verify and calculate the renewal deadline. On the right-hand side, you may well be aware that for certain countries, most obvious being the US, the patent has to be granted for renewal to be calculated. So registration details need to be presented for granted cases. But we also see, and this is an example of a screenshot from the US Patent Office. Sometimes, and this is the reason why we see it, registration numbers are, there are typing errors, and that is because some patent offices do not allow you to copy paste the registration numbers from the PTO. So a very specific example, but just one that we've seen quite often where, the registration numbers aren't being transcribed into the TT software that then comes over to Astria. Other kind of common country data inaccuracies, entity sizes. This is more common with our US TTO clients that have a number of US patents, but it's still very common for any TTO around the world to have a number of US patents. What many of you may be unaware of is that the entity size of the US patent affects the official fee and the price you pay for the renewals. And the entity size can change over time. So as a small university that's licensed their IP to a multinational, the entity size can change. And so the official fees need to be reflected based on the entity size at the Patent Office. So it's just something to be aware of, that entity size is something we check when we receive US case data to ensure that we are presenting the fees for the renewals based on the entity size that we see at the Patent Office. But equally, our check sometimes does prompt TTO clients to realize that actually the entity size published at the US Patent Office is inaccurate, and they can then kind of be prompted to change the entity size to the accurate one. Other kind of data inaccuracies we see when we're working on kind of renewals is when a European application, which does require renewal payments on an annual basis, when that EP is granted, the case will either go to validation or it can be a unitary patent. So here when we're checking data, we are flagging when a EP case is granted to our clients to record the validation states if they've gone the validation route, or the unitary patent details, so that we can then calculate the renewal deadlines for the granted cases. In terms of kind of data accuracy and how we go about it more specifically, so the Astra team and software, really kind of excited about the fact that we can offer what we call a triple check of data accuracy for our clients' data that comes to us. And we do this using three mechanisms. We've got a proprietary country database that we have built up for over many hundreds of countries and PTOs, and we keep that up to date. So we use that as kind of check number one. We also have direct and indirect APIs to patent officers to actually identify the specific cases at the patent offices to make sure that the data that we've received from the client matches up with the PTO. And then the third check is the team of expert paralegals that we've got here in London are checking the cases against the patent office to ensure that the case has been identified. The base data is what we see at the patent office, and then we are calculating the renewal deadline. But what we do through this triple check is also feedback what inaccuracies we see through constructive, specific review comments that go back to the specific case that we are querying, which is very helpful. So we do it for our reasons to identify and calculate renewal deadlines, but our clients are really pleased to kind of receive this feedback on their data quality because they can then have additional confidence that the accuracy of what they are maintaining in their tech transfer systems are based on what is at the patent office. So it's another set of eyes and a system looking over the data as well. So this section is how I've seen kind of officers move from kind of a reactive decision-making approach to a more proactive decision-making approach through solutions that are being offered to the market these days. So in terms of kind of reasons for reactive decision-making, fragmented information. So as mentioned, many TTOs are either using multiple attorneys, so they don't have kind of a live visibility of their renewal deadlines easily accessible, or they have a separate centralized IP renewals portal that means that the data they've got in their IP management software system is has to be kind of double docketed as we say into a separate system if they're using a centralized renewals system. So, that fragmented information means that you're kind of working across two systems, or you're looking, over sort of spreadsheets, and you're unsure if everything is quite current and accurate. And obviously, that means imperfect information. So, you don't have live current information at your fingertips, and that information related to renewal deadlines is not sitting in a place that allows you, gives you additional context around factors that affect decision makers' decision. And I'll explain what I mean in a minute on the next slide. And the last thing, which is kind of linked partly to data quality, but also to imperfect and fragmented information, is it becomes a bit more of a reactive thing in terms of kind of giving decisions for renewal deadlines. So there's an 11th hour scramble to make a decision or to pay or abandon a renewal, and with proactive decision making and sort of software and services, that doesn't have to be the case. So, what does proactive decision making look like? So this kind of simplified diagram shows renewal deadlines, sitting within your IP management software in an integrated way. So, if you've got all your data in your tech transfer system, be it a system like Sophia or Evolve, a decision maker typically needs to look at a renewals deadline for a number of reasons. Commercially, is there commercial interest? Is it licensed? Technically, is it a strong technical opportunity that's kind of been validated and the path to market's clear? Is the size of the market, opportunity, the addressable market, the technology valuable, and is the strength of the IP strong? With these kind of factors like these are kind of what decision makers are typically looking to make decisions on renewal deadlines. And so having that within a system, in one view, allows kind of strategic, decision making on real time renewal deadlines and prices. And so instructions can be kind of given in a kind of more routine lead time that kind of removes the stress and makes things far more proactive. So strategically instructing renewals, strategically allowing patents to lapse, or having a mechanism where you can check with your licensee if they're paying the renewal to market as other channels. So specifically, I think I'm coming close to the last few slides. How does Wellspring, fit into this landscape of, the operational shift to integrated data-driven IP renewals solutions. And our proposition, which we've launched this year, is the Astra Evolve integration. So Astra is a software-enabled service, and I'll talk a bit more about what the functionality of Astra is. And then Evolve is the kind of leading tech transfer software system that's certainly generating a lot of interest globally. So we have built an integration between Evolve, so clients can kind of keep their IP records in one place within Evolve, and then that data is being synchronized with Astra for data that is live and active and requires renewal deadline tracking. We are then receiving that data over an API. We're checking that data against the patent officers. And if we have any data queries, we're sending those review comments back into Evolve. So clients can kind of instantly pre-instruct renewals, instantly sync cases. They can also see all the feedback on the data quality, the data health of their IP based on what we've received at Astra, and clean them up through their own workflows. And then I guess the last kind of feature that we're really excited about is that when renewals are being instructed via Astra and invoices are generated, those invoices are being issued both in PDF and an electronic format called leads. And that leads format invoice is actually automatically being imported back into Evolve on an overnight sync. And what that means is the reconciliation of patent renewal expenses becomes far easier because you've got the invoices syncing to the IP record, and then they can be approved through workflows in Evolve through to kind of processing and payment, and then reconciling those pass-through costs if they are pass-through costs to licensees. I won't spend too much time on what Astra is, but I'll flash a few slides up. And by all means, always happy to talk in more detail about it. But Astra is the centralized renewals system that integrates with Evolve, and it gives you a 12-month rolling view of your renewals upcoming. It gives you kind of a data health view in terms of kind of data integrity checks. You get a case view to show you all the renewal deadlines that are coming due. We also have things like URL links to patent officers for the case. So you can actually click within Astra on your IP record and go to the patent office record directly by clicking on a URL link for the countries that are listed here and many other countries being added. In terms of the service, we're really proud of having an expert paralegal customer support team that's always available and very responsive to your needs. And as I mentioned, with invoicing, we've got new kind of technology that just simplifies the whole process of reconciling patent renewal expenses to the records that sync daily. Budget-wise, really important. You obviously have a budget for your patent spend each year, and you need to kind of be sure that you're tracking your budget versus actual spend, and that's something that we've sort of focused on developing with the Astra system. So I guess in summary, that's how I've seen the kind of world of patent renewal shift from kind of reactive to proactive through changes in providers and the technologies and all that good stuff. So that's my 2 pennies worth, Stuart.
Thank you, Ronnie. As I said at the beginning, we do have the possibility to ask questions in the Q&A chat. What I propose is that I'll say a few words, then we'll break the recording. So if you do have some questions you'd like not to be recorded, do feel free to post them in the chat. Thank you, Ronnie. You took me back to my days in a tech transfer office, and the absolutely essential part of tracking what was happening with patents and making sure that you knew what was going on. But back in the days where these tools didn't exist, and it was far much more of a headache than it is now. So it's been wonderful to see that flash forward into the world of a tech transfer office now.